I hope you're ready for some illogic. Last time we went over our Week 8 battle with Joey and the Akron Agrons. Please go check that video out first if you've not done so already, as we discussed the team breakdown, team builder, post-game analysis, and the battle itself, in which, spoiler alert, we bounced back in a big way with a 6-0 win over the Agrons, securing our playoff spot in 6-2 and on the brink of a potential first-round bye. Our hurdle to that is Matt and his 6-2 Cincinnati Incineroar. Timestamps for team builder battle and post-game thoughts will be in the description. This is an important battle, I think, as both of our two losses, that is, my two and his two, came against the same two coaches, Steve, Chuck, and Zach, the Waterdeep Wobbuffets, and the Summit County Psyducks. It would be nice to get a good win against a high-caliber opponent before going into the playoffs. Matt is the commissioner of our league and has done great work in coordinating everything alongside Steve Chuck to make sure we're up and running. He's also a great battler in his own right, the only other member of the league with experience in other draft leagues, and finishing runner-up last season to me, dropping 2-0 after a great season with mons like Charizard and Ninetales, and was the owner of our Dragapult last season. This time, his team consists of Inteleon, Gmax Cinderace, Orbeetle, Cramorant, Goodra, Diggersby, Luxray, Primarina, Clefable, Delmise, and Steelix. It's a great team with three water types, each with very different capabilities, physical offense from Cinderace and Diggersby, and the slow boys, and the general bulk between Clefable, Steelix, Orbeetle screens, and the thickness and power of Goodra. Not too much to abuse here, honestly, but I do still believe it's a pretty good matchup for us. His matchup is not helped at all by Cramorant, who, despite outspeeding my two electric types, doesn't provide much help at all when I have a whole Mantine in the back, not to mention Mew and Dragapult potentially nuking it with ease. Luxray also struggles mightily as an electric type, too slow to do anything, with tons of easy switch-ins like Sandaconda or Tangela. Orbeetle has been favored for the ability to set up some quick screens and or webs, but I'm not buying it here, not with the faster Ghost and Dark types that make for easy leads from me. I do have to prep for the general nonsense it brings, of course, but I don't think it's a concern. Diggersby could come, but again my physical bulk comes through with Tangela and Sandaconda soaking hits all day and Dragapult outspeeding at all times, not to mention Sneasel's Ice Shard. Multiple ground immunities. Yeah. Finally, I'll pick Primarina to stay behind. The final water type is better than this, mostly by merit of the poor speed stat Primarina has in the matchup that makes it fall prey to my best mons with relative ease. That said, I think that among his six that he will bring, Inteleon is very cool. I know he's been favoring a scope lens set to consistently crit, and I only have a couple possible answers to that deadly set, not to mention the absurd speed stat and great coverage it gets. Delmise is next for not only being able to spin away hazards, but provide a serious answer to my offensive threats, minus Dragapult and Sneasel. The stabs are great coverage, and I could see either an Assault Vest set or a Synthesis set used to try to break past my walls. Of course, these top four I 100% expect to see. We're going to start that off with Goodra. I know Matt's liked physically offensive sets recently, but I think maybe a special or mixed sets will do more wonders for him. Maybe with Sludge Bomb or Draco Meteor for Tangela and Thunder Punch for Mantine. An AP set could be tricky, but I'm also very worried about a Scarf set too, and choice sets just don't have a safe switch in at all. Steelix is only a tier 4 mon, but it's a ground type, and we know how much I've struggled with that combination. I just saw this thing tear through a team with Iron Defense Body Press, so I need to be aware of this and bring multiple answers to it, even if it does start to boost up. Gmax Cinderace, even without Libero, is pretty silly with its cover options. Fire, Fighting, Flying, Poison, Dark, and Bug are all pretty standard, so I either have to hope he misses coverage rather on something, or doesn't boost up the right stats, or have a dedicated answer no matter what he has? Is that even possible? Finally, Clefable is one of the banes of my existence. It has too many different sets, and not enough ways to be able to break through it. The Calm Mind set needs to be handled differently than the Wish Teleport set, or go Cosmic Power, or Toxic Stall, or Aromatherapy, or Trick Sticky Barb, and I can't exactly wear it down either because of Magic Guard. It means a Leech Seed is very a tough answer for it. Toxic doesn't work either. I maybe set up on it. Oh, that's right, I could run unaware. Very annoying. So, the team I don't think is impossible to deal with, though. On my side, Colossal was cut early, as it struggles with the plethora of water types and might not even be able to deal with the Steel type, let alone Cinderace having coverage for it. The best matchups it has are against some of his worst mons, so sorry Colossal. Volby was also cut early as usual for a lack of winning matchups and especially being set up bait for Clefable, whom I struggled to even touch. Took too much from Inteleon of special defense, too much from Cinderace of physical defense, and just couldn't do enough. Sneasel is next, and it gets outsped by two mons I think he's bringing, and is stonewalled hard by Clefable, requiring multiple triple axle to hit 3 times, but it just gets popped by Moonblast anyways. Magnezone is just too slow. Scarf set looked kind of nice, but it still struggles to get in, and none of its moves are spammable enough due to the steel type of all things, so it'll ride the bench. Finally, unfortunately, I could not find room for Tangela this week. It would have been nice to bring the bundle of vines along to wall Steelix and Delmise, among others. I even had a couple cool ideas for it. I was considering trying to bring something like a Worry Seed for Clefable to be able to Leech Seed or Toxic it down. But alas, it just doesn't provide enough to the overall composition, consisting of the remaining 6. Each Mon has a very specific role to play this time, countering a Mon or coming in at a specific time. Why don't we start with the designated lead, if I don't see Orbital, that is. My bug is better, I say, as aside from Sticky Webs, the max special attack on Vikavolt threatens at least 2 KOs on most of his team, including something like a physically defensive Clefable, who I am EV'd to outspeed. Steelix also is such a big threat. I'm willing to just bug buzz him a couple times to get him low, and all that max special attack will really help that out. And otherwise, Volt Switch is such a good option to switch around after getting down webs. You see, I don't see the greatest removal on his team, as I don't think Cinderace can afford to give up a move slot for Court Change, especially with how hesitant I've been to bring hazards recently, which leaves Delmise as a somewhat consistent spinner, and that's about it. Webs look amazing here, though, facilitating team members like this Silvally that I brought. Choice Band this time, and our last chance to try and nab at a KO in the regular season. I'm very worried about Clefable being able to wall me indefinitely, see, and a Swords Dance set doesn't necessarily help if it's unaware. Enter Choice Band, who has a chance to OHKO max HP special defense Clefable, and otherwise dent it hard enough that it needs to switch around. Shadow Claw is decent neutral coverage, still denting the Delmise immunity, and providing neutral damage to the fairies in particular. Flamethrower hits the Delmise, and Steelix more so it warrants use, I suppose, and of course U-Turn can dance around a bit too. If webs go up, by the way, this will outspeed his whole team. Imagine hitting the Inteleon, or the Cinderace, or the Goodra with a banded multi-attack because I'm faster than it. That's a big goal of this set. Clear something out with the multi-attack and dance around the immunity and resist. Of course, I need to have clear answers to those big threats, so let's go with these super checks to some of those, and we're going to start with this Mantine. This was an absolute requirement to bring, considering it hard walls all the water types with Water Absorb. It takes minimal damage from coverage moves, Primarina's Moonblast being the main calc, along with something like Inteleon's Ice Beam. Haze is still important to remove Calm Mind boosts from Primarina, meaning if I can stall out subs and Calm Minds from it, I eventually will have a chance to Toxic it, or anything else. It's a way to test Clefable's ability too, wear down an incoming Delmise, actually hurt the Goodra, things like that. But primarily, I'm expecting Inteleon to come that. Plus, Scald's about the only move to hit the Steelix that I'm bringing, so I can expect that to come through clutch as well. Great Mon in the matchup. Glad I get to bring the Manta Ray that is currently 6-0 on my team. Next is the Cinderace check, which is Sandaconda. Did you know that when G-Max, he isn't going to be doing more than about a quarter of my health to me? That's actually nuts, and I'll relish the opportunity to hit back with a ground move. Delmise is about the only switch in he has, but it won't appreciate the Sandblast chip, nor the Sandstorm chip that can reduce Synthesis health either. This is always the answer to Cinderace, and I won't be G-Maxing until it does. In case we do end up switching around, though, in the situation in which both G-Maxes end, I do have an option to Glare, which is nice too. It helps the slowdown game for something like Silvally to come in and clean up, and Sticky Webs plus Paralysis could allow something like Vikavolt to get in a bunch of work too. Cool Mon, cool synergy, but let's talk about our last 2 Mons, starting with the dedicated Clefable check, and that's going to be Mew, running a somewhat familiar set. Taunt and Roost are super obvious in countering Clefable, stopping the Wish, the Teleport, the Aromatherapy every single time, while staying healthy in the face of Moonblasts. Knockoff can also remove its lefties, as well as many other key items on the opponent's team. Removing lefties can also facilitate the final move, Will-O-Wisp, to actually chip them without lefties negating it. That, and it's one of the best answers I have to Delmise and Steelix's Rampage. It might not be pretty, but that's kind of how it is. And it emphasizes the importance of the battle between this and the Aromatherapy using Clefable. Finally, just a quick note, the speed stat is there for the Orbital, so if I do see Orbital in the matchup, this will be the lead, and just immediately taunt it to stop it from setting up screens. So, with all this in mind, how will Dragapult take advantage of the mess? You may have noticed quite a few status moves, including Will-O-Wisp, Glare, Toxic, even Scald. And Hex Dragapult loves seeing statuses. This is about the only way for me to touch Clefable, bar a Steel Wing set that may not even work depending on Unaware. So we're going mixed, with a way to hurt him hard. Hex on a burnt Steelix is always doing over half, while taking minimal damage in return because of the burn. Fizz-Def Clefable takes half, whilst that's very important, honestly, because I need to make sure I do half to Clefable with so many different things. The Choice Banded Silvally does over half. The flash cannon from Vikavolt does over half, and this doing over half as well. Soft boiled or Wish being able to recover it for half its health, we cannot allow that to happen. We need to be able to break that thing down in some way, shape, or form, and frankly, this is the most reliable way for a Dragapult to do that, especially if it's facilitated by a Taunt, by the Will-O-Wisp, by something else, maybe even a Glare on it, just something to be able to let Dragapult hit that for half its health. On other notes, Goodra gets dropped by the Dragon Darts, with max HP Goodra actually being O-code most of the time too. So if I get a little bit of chip on it, it's down. Even better if webs are up for a Scarf set. Dragapult is a fantastic cleaner this time, and we're looking to keep pace in the KOs department too, up by only 1 over Steve Chuck's Lycanroc. So are we going to be able to keep up? Only 1 difference. I see the Diggersby here over the Delmise. That's fine, another electric community, sure, but it means no rapid spin, so webs are a top priority for me. Vikavolt is a very obvious lead for me, and he is going to go with the Diggersby. I'm expecting maybe a banded U-turn or something, but he is actually going to set up right out of the gate with agility on my webs. It's not great, but I have a sash for this exact situation. I'm not going to get worked up about it. Not yet, anyways. Of course, once he goes for the Double Dance, I'm feeling very good. There wasn't much of a reason for me to switch, so I figured I might as well Bug Buzz him. That's going to do well over half and threatens the 2-hit KO. That is, of course, very important, as with the Focus Sash, I guarantee to take out this threat early. That is set up twice. Pretty nice. Even better, after the lefties, a Stone Edge miss. I know Matt was pretty peeved about this when it happened, but found out about the Focus Sash later at least. I obviously couldn't reveal that immediately, but I can't say for sure how much that miss mattered, considering it would never, ever OHKO. But it definitely still sucks. Very proud of that Focus Sash choice now, which at first was just to guarantee the webs, but now shows how confident I could be in staying in and just getting rid of one of his biggest threats. And I got webs up, so this is an incredibly amazing first couple turns. Speaking of the biggest threats, though, in is going to come the Steelix, who really can't do much to me aside from a rock move, and with my sash still intact, I may as well keep swinging, right? Bug Buzz. Oh man, that's a crit. That's more positive luck on my side. When did that happen? That's crazy. 59% is a lot, and with the crit, it shows me the Steelix is actually physically bulky rather than specially. That did more than it should have if it were specially bulky. Head Smash and Return, cool move. It hits this and the Mantine, of course, and that'll bring me down to my sash finally. Honestly, at this point, I think it's fine for this to go down. I really do. Vikavolt has done over half to Steelix, all of Diggersby health, and webs are up. I really can't ask for any more than this. I'm going to just Bug Buzz again. But Matt was actually nice enough to swap in the Clefable this time, and it's going to take from a Bug Buzz only 18%. It's a resisted hit, sure, but once again, I got very valuable information. This is a specially defensive Clefable. That didn't do enough for a max special attack Vikavolt, so this is incredible. My 2 options here are to Flash Cannon, which won't do as much to a special defense Clefable and risks me knocking out, or I am faster than Clefable. Pretty sure that was true even without webs because of my investment, but it means that I could just Volt Switch out to get some more chip. Now, Mew is obviously a nice switch in, but it would mean potentially taking a hit, and Toxic seems very likely. Clefable not having physical investment should mean Silvali's coming in, and it does indeed take a Toxic from Clefable. Not a big deal, not a big issue, honestly. Especially as Clef did not click Wish, which would have been the worst case scenario, I think, and I'm very happy to avoid that. Unfortunately, after seeing the success Protect had against me a couple weeks ago, Clefable reprises that role here to get some more Toxic chip while scouting me out. He may actually know I'm choiced at this point too, as Silvally Normal is pretty likely to carry a choice item. Knowing Clefable's moveset is important here too, though, as we see Toxic, Protect, and most likely it's going to be Wish in there too. That means the last move should be Moonblast, maybe Aromatherapy in a worst case scenario, maybe even Knockoff like Mew, but that's pretty unlikely. Doing this set helps a ton though, so it's not a setup set, which is very important. If he thinks I'm Scarfed, I've got to switch. I think the most likely thing for him to do is click Toxic again, though if he predicts a switch, he certainly could. Either way, I don't think I can stay in and give Steelix a free turn, so I'm just going to pivot out into the Mew, which was the designated Clefable answer anyways, and he does indeed go to the Steelix. Great switch, honestly. Mew has a couple easy buttons to click here, though. I'd like to cripple this permanently with a Burn, so I'm just going to go for a Will-O-Wisp into this thing. It does get a little bit of lefties. He goes into the Goodra, which is actually incredibly nice for a possible mix set. I am a little concerned about what this Goodra could do. But Mew could tank anything. I checked out some calcs with Draco Meteor being the worst case scenario. Mew can take it. Mew can take it real easily with lefties not being threatened either. So I guess I may as well just click knockoff to see what the Gooter is anticipating to do. And it's going to get even better. So he switches in the Clefable, and down go the leftovers. That's going to limit this Clefable tremendously, which is awesome. This is the glue of the team, and I think it always has been for Matt. So limiting this in any capacity is so important, especially when it coming in means I can click Taunt, which prevents Wish. That obviously could have gone to either itself or the Steelix. So that's incredibly important. I can't imagine it really staying in much more than this. But just in case, I'd like to nab a status on it and confirm if it is Magic Art or not, and set up for that Dragapult later in case I need to do that. Inteleon comes in on what Matt now assumes is a defensive set, makes sense, and I do miss the Willow. That's really not a huge deal. This is a special attacker, getting a little bit of chip every turn. Nice, but it's not a big deal, not at all. And certainly not enough to make up for the crit Bug Buzz and Stone Edge miss, but it's something. I say it doesn't matter, of course, because I do have an incredible check to this, and that is Mantine. Mantine is a good mon. Focus Energy, of course, with the scope lens, will boost the crit chance to 100%, and Sniper boosts those crits even further. However, 29% only from Dark Pulse. That's crazy. And more importantly, I get the Toxic off, which actually means that maybe that Will-O-Wisp miss was a good thing for me. This is a much better way to chip this thing if it's really going to try and stay in and do anything. I've got to chip it somehow, and this is the best way I could probably do it. More efficient than the burn. I could haze away the Focus Energy boost, too. Does that work that way? Guess I should have checked. That's fine. Speaking of check, though, Ice Beam only does 35%. Oh, my goodness. I can roost up again. Really, the only option he has right now is to try and get secondary effects, so I can't really blame him that much. But the Toxic is starting to wrap up. As such, his switch into Clefable is warranted. I'm just going to get back up to 100% on Mantine. It's a good exchange for me overall, honestly, I'd say. Of course, if there is a mon that can bring your team back, it's definitely Clef, so I've got to be careful. I've got to go into the Mew here on the Wish. Taunt seems rather obvious, but I am predicting that if he stays in, he goes Protect, and if he switches, it'll be into Steelix. So Will-O-Wisp, I think, is the right play for sure to scare him a bit. He does heal himself back up to full. It'll remove the chip from Vigfull, but that's totally fine. I like this position a lot more, as I have Mew in at full health, and I can fire off an important Taunt on another Wish, so that's pretty nice there. Honestly, may have been a misplay at the beginning of this exchange from him not trying to Toxic down the Mantine or the Mew that was incoming, because then this would have been a lot easier for him to handle. Instead, going for the Wish to try and heal himself back up and remaining defensive. I guess that's just the pressure that I've been able to put on this match, but still, probably would have been better for him to try to get the Toxic off before I could taunt him. But still, that's how it is. He switched last time I taunted in the current situation, but knowing that the last move, I'd still like to try and burn this for Dragapult, who is looking just better and better. Only Clefable and Cinderace in its way. Inteleon switches in, kind of for free, but I'll take the Toxic chip, that's fine. Honestly, though, Mew has a chance to do a lot of work here, and if he's swapping an Inteleon, it means it doesn't matter much anymore, I think, especially after seeing the pitiful damage it did to Mantine. This may seem odd when he has the Dark Pulse, but I'm going to stay in and knock off. I'm going to essentially try to remove that Focus Energy boost if he does go for that. Even better, he's going to swap back into Clefable. He was trying to get Clefable back in on the switch. Very rude there, but very good job by me staying in, especially as we see on this next turn taunt. And yep, you may notice right there, that was an aromatherapy. That's why he was trying to get this back in. That makes a lot of sense, but wow, has that been held on to for a bit. That would heal the Toxic and the burn and could stop the Dragapult Hex strat hard. More importantly than all that, it guarantees Clefable does not have an attacking move. That's huge. That guarantees a switch every time I taunt it, for one thing, so that's an easy knockoff. On this particular time, it's going to be Goodra, who comes in, slows down, knock off, get rid of the Assault Vest, burn damage. To be honest, I think only Cinderace forces Mew out at this point. I don't mind Mew just staying in and knocking off his whole team. I don't see anything having the damage output to deal with this right now either. And I can't afford to let the Clefable back in for free unless you undo a lot of the damage that I've already done. No real reason for me to switch out at all. Nothing beats it at this point. If I can't let him get the aromatherapy off. What's Goodra going to do? Let's just knock off again. 17% is honestly a lot more than I expected. Surf's not doing anything. I can heal health with lefties too. Goodra doesn't have that luxury, and with the burn, Another knockoff. T-Bolt trying to get the secondary effect probably. I'm at 65% to his 12%. Another knockoff will finish it, but he's actually going to play along with me and go into the Inteleon, which again loses scope lens and a ton more health, along with the damage from that and the toxic. This really couldn't be working out much better for me at this point. This is just, I can't believe how well this is going. I'm going to roost on the Dark Pulse. It's going to end with me at about the same health while toxic just ticks away on him. I do want to claim this KO even at the expense of a bit of health, so I'm going to knock off this turn on Cinderace coming in, and there's another unfortunate crit. That did way more than it should have, 47%. Oh my goodness. I'm not sure how much that mattered. Maybe it affected his play and decision making. We'll see how much it matters otherwise. But I did almost half. Jeez, I expected Cinderace to come in at some point sooner rather than later to actually break through my Mew. That's interesting. I didn't opt to sack anything to give it a free switch or anything like that. Well, we have the switch for this, so let's just swap right into the Sandaconda. I considered sacking the Vikavolt here to get it in for free, but thought there's a chance for another 6-0. Big Cinderace max Flutterby only does 24%. Probably means it's U-turn over Sucker Punch, if I had to guess, considering the Max Darkness would have done just as much to the Mew while being a kind of safer overall play. That's really not going to do anything. It does pitiful damage, even to base Sandaconda. Excellent. So, considering he is G-maxed, there's no reason for me to do anything other than G-max myself and click Sandblast. Fireball, only 23%. That's crazy. Sandblast, of course, will finish it off. I don't think the Mew crit from earlier played into this all that much, honestly, because with the super effective move, with the chip from afterwards, I think it would have just been O-code anyways. Or when at least close enough to it that the little bit of knockoff chip would have done enough. Anyways, maybe if he had sacked something off and got this in at full health, it may have mattered in that sense, but that's fine. He doesn't have his ground immunity this week in Cramorant. His grass type was down, so there was no reason for me to do anything other than this. Anyways, goodbye, Cinderace. You were a threat, even if Livero isn't allowed, and that's totally fine. Clefable makes way too much sense, of course. It actually survives hits and doesn't even take the residual from Sandblast, as we can see during the turn end, as it does Wish. Protect is so obvious, though. I'm actually going to make an interesting play and go into the Silvally and the G-Max early. You see, Clefable is currently trapped, even if it isn't taking the damage from Sandblast. His way back into the game is to use and abuse the Clefable, particularly Wish Passing and Aromatherapy. Without Teleport, though, it is trapped right now, so this is my best chance I have to smack it with the Spadef investment. That means Silvally is my answer. On Protect, Silvally comes in for free, aside from the toxic damage. It'll Protect, but this thing is trapped, and although it may be very healthy right now, I know it's actually a bit of a roll in my favor right now to try and KO this thing. So on this next turn, Multi-Attack will either KO or bring it super low, and that'll force it to Protect the next turn, which can allow in something else on my team. Probably the Mew, maybe the Vikavolt, actually, if I'm feeling real frisky on that one. However, I do get a little bit lucky. What was about a 50-50 roll or so, Clefable does go down on. So that's probably going to be game right there, honestly. He has no way to restore health or status on anything. 6-3 now, and the 6-0 looks kind of imminent. And Silvally getting its first KO of the season is pretty nice, honestly. We don't want to overlook that. Steelix coming in, as he has correctly surmised that this is banded. Mew is about the only switch I have for Steelix, honestly. He sets up rocks. Vikavolt can't come back in, that's fine. Knockoff can't miss, so let's just stop his recovery right now. It's Earthquake, and that's totally fine. Totally fine, does about a third. It's just a simple game from here. I'm going to heal back up a little bit on the EQ, and I'm going to burn him with a Will-O-Wisp. So that's really going to need to rely on some crits and such. So after one more Roost here, this might be BM at this point, but let's be real. I think Dragapult deserves it. Let's get Dragapult some KOs here at the end of the season. It definitely deserves it. Just click Hex on the Steelix. I'm going to click Hex on the Inteleon as well as that comes in. Those webs making it so even Choice Scarf not going to be outspeeding me, which is outstanding. And then I'm just going to Dragon Darts, Goopy Dan, the Goodra for the final 3 KOs. That'll bring Dragapult up to 16 on the season, secures the final game of the season with a 6-0 victory as well. GG to Matt. I know hacks went my way more than yours. I'm not sure how much they mattered. Maybe a little bit. If anything, it made a 5-0 into a 6-0 thanks to Vikavolt surviving at the beginning. Let's just go in depth then, shall we? So, Steelix was always going to be a problem. I'm lucky I got a good switch in on it. Honestly, I could afford to keep Sandaconda healthy for the Cinderace. because otherwise he was going to have to pull double duty for the Steelix as well. Rocks on it made a lot of sense. I assume the other attack on it was body press. Maybe Toxic would have been a good call, try to break through Mew's Sandaconda. Cinderace wasn't really beating the Sandaconda, and Mew put on so much pressure that forced Cinderace into a weird situation that it meant it couldn't come in safely and couldn't boost up. Goodra could have been a cool set, but it wasn't a breaking set, that's for sure. Would have been interested to see other coverage moves. Surf for Colossal implies a fully special set, I think. Otherwise, it may have gone Earthquake. Draco Meteor could have put in a lot of work depending on investment. Definitely lucky that Mew was able to do so much, but Dragapult and Silvally could still end it pretty easily, especially with the webs up. Silvally's Choice Banded, Multi-Attack, Dragapult, D-Darts were going to clean it up no matter what anyways. That Clefable set was gross. It kind of feels like it needed all those moves, but that ended up being too much pressure on it. Taunt was the GOAT move against this set, of course, but even without Taunt, it feels like it was counting on me wasting my time in front of Clef. Makes me think a sub-zone set would have been excellent here, actually. Diggersby was definitely a cool idea, outspeeding everything thanks to agility, and Oakwing probably the whole team, minus maybe Sandaconda at +2, and of course if I had brought Tangela, and with the ground rock coverage. Unfortunate miss, that's kind of part of the game you play when you bring rock coverage at all, which really sucks. But the Focus Sash Spring also stopped it cold. Finally, Inteleon really is strong with crit, but I can't help wonder on the Dark Pulse Spring over U-Turn. Maybe for Mew, but U-Turn was more important to keep up momentum, I think, and he had to know that Mantine would come as my check for it. On my side, Dragapult was unnecessary in the end, but it was amazing to have the safety net on my side. D-Darts did so much damage to everything but Clefable and Steelix, and putting Hex on it basically created the game plan for the entire match. It forced my emphasis on the Clefable, it warped my mindset in the exact right way for the matchup. Big shout out as well for finishing first in the league in KOs from the regular season, finishing at 16-4 overall this season, and appearing in all 9 games. Mew was easily the MVP of the week. Even without a KO, it did way too much damage with knockoff and Willow anyways, let alone the recovery prevented by getting taunted. What a great set, what a great bond. Definitely won the game close to by itself. Vikavolt probably the runner-up for that. We'll get to him in a moment. Silvally gets first KO. If you told me it's 1 KO this season was on Clefable, then I think that'd be totally worth it for that only KO there. It put on similar pressure that Dragapult did without needing to risk Dragapult, which I think is a very important thing to consider in its role moving forward. Sandaconda was literally just there for Cinderace. It remained healthy enough that it could act as a check to things like Steelix 2 if needed, but it wasn't needed. Also, great job trapping the Clefable. Similar to last week with the Rillaboom, I'm starting to see its true value with that Sand Tomb effect. It's been fantastic. Mantine was literally there for Inteleon, but remained healthy enough that it could act as a check to things like Steelix 2 if needed. But it wasn't. Cool roll for these two, both kind of in a row there. Glad they worked out basically perfectly. Finally, webs were so nice, but not for the amount I was expecting. Mew outspeeding Inteleon was amazing, but it was just a great safety net for Scarfers, even if they didn't come. Vikavolt, great big shout out to how much work it put in. Skillfully dodging yet another Stonehenge this season. It seems to be the better half of my hacks this season, for sure, but the webs and the chip damage was so crucial from it. Finding out that the Steelix was physically defensive, finding out that the Clefable was especially defensive, definitely the number 2 MVP, I think, of this week, right behind the Mew. So that's going to wrap it up. Stallbreaker Mew put in too much work to be real. Next week, nothing. That 6-0 win was the only way we could 100% guarantee a first round bye. We were 1 point differential ahead of the third place Psyducks, meaning we get the number 2 seed moving into the playoffs unless Steve Chuck loses his final match, in which case we actually move up to the number 1 seed. Either way, the top 2 seeds get a bye, with 6 teams making the playoffs. So after that, we have to anticipate the next teams to fight. At this rate, it'll probably be Zach and the Psyducks, followed by Steve Chuck and the Wobbuffets, the 2 teams I lost to in the regular season. The rematch of a match you've won is the hardest match in Draft League, I'm convinced, so these may actually be in my advantage. What kind of tricks am I going to have to pull out in the playoffs? Let's find out next time as we got to the semi-finals. See ya.